We have a very special guest on today's show. We are bringing on Chargers defensive tackle Breiden Fehoko, who has some of the wildest takes out there. Is super fun talking about his upbringing and making it into the league as an undrafted free agent, and also giving us an insider look in how the Chargers defense works.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drokemeyer. We've been covering the Chargers together for 7 seasons now, but this is our 5th season as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making this your first listen. And if you don't want to miss an incredible interview like the one we have for you today, make sure you are subscribing to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and also following the show for free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from. We have a great one with Breiden Fehoko, who was awesome, right? Really appreciated hearing how he grew up and the pressure he was under to kind of play football, having 3 brothers go Division I before him, having his dad be the face of Hawaii football, but also who he would steal from the 2019 LSU team. Maybe Jamar Chase to the Chargers, Justin Jefferson to the Chargers. He had a really good answer for that. And also, he kind of broke things down for us. He gave us a really good, insightful look on how the Chargers defense works, especially concerning the run fits and how important it is for all 11 players to play there. But we get into a lot of really fun stuff, including what it's like to play for Brandon Staley, one of the most polarizing coaches in the NFL. But today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. If you ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your own football franchise, then this is the game that's definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game. Here he is, Breiden Fehoko. All right, well, our next guest needs no introduction. One of the fan favorites, one of our favorite Chargers with a great story. We have Breiden Fehoko on today's show. Super excited to have him on. If you don't already, you probably do. Make sure you go follow him on Twitter at Fehoko Show. One of our favorites, not, ever afraid to let the takes fly, especially regarding, food and things like that. In-N-Out lovers, sit down for now. Maybe we'll get to that later. But I want to start with this, Breiden. First of all, just thank you for coming on the show, man. You didn't have to. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on today.
No doubt. Appreciate you guys for having me, and I'm looking forward to talk some real ball with y'all.
Let's talk some ball. And I mean, you actually got to play some ball this year. More than twice as many snaps as you got to play in 2021. You got to play in 2022. Really had a big role for yourself down the stretch of the season. And we'll talk about that 4-game winning streak later. You were a big part of that. Got to play a lot of snaps in that. But what did it mean for you specifically, man? Grinding it out, being an undrafted free agent, getting to where you're at, where you're kind of on the team, up and down. But to get that extended stretch where you could really kind of feel like you show what you can do.
Yeah, it's always going to be tough for these first couple years, these first 3 years, I like to say, being in my position as an undrafted guy. My contract's able for anybody to look up. I signed to the Chargers for, crumbs. And, it was prove it, come in, and you got to prove it every year, not just in 2020. And, I understand the course of the way things go as I've grown up in my career. Earlier in my career, I kind of questioned a little bit like, hey, I feel like, I should be playing more. I feel like this and this. But as I've gotten older, I've understood that, hey, you're an undrafted guy. You're always going to be a guy that's, until you can consistently prove yourself in this league, you're always going to be a guy that's going to have to prove yourself day in and day out. And I've liked that. It's helped me mold into a better player. It's helped me become a better person in life. And ultimately getting to play that much football this year helped me because, I was able to get my name out there on a national stage, thankfully so, and able to just, show people what I can do outside of, the Chargers fan base, outside of the Chargers organization, outside of the coaches and players that see me every day, on a day-to-day basis. I was able to show, the National Football League what Breiden Fehoko can bring to the table as a football player.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL is a business, right? And, of course, you're with the Chargers, but, you want to be able to put your best tape out there. You want to be able to put your best foot forward. But, kind of transition here. One of the things that's been really fun to watch, especially, with you, is how proud your parents are of you and have been of you. Whether it's on Twitter or in the stands, you always, can find your parents hyping you up. How cool is it to be able to see your dad wearing your jersey and seeing how proud of you he is of your success?
I owe everything to them. I'm a product of my environment, and my environment is being raised in a family household where, my mother and my father and my 3 older brothers all care for me growing up, and they've invested so much into me and me into being the man I am today off the field. Not just who I am as a football player, but to see them whenever they can make it out to home games, whenever they can make it out to away games, makes me proud, makes me play hard, knowing that how much they've poured into me. Getting to watch the Super Bowl and see, Mama Kelsey out there, that kind of brings, a cool warmth to my heart and even a couple tears now and then, because that football is more than just X's and O's and schematics and techniques. There's certain intricate things that you really can't measure, and that's the emotion of the sport and what it brings. And like the Kelseys, like my parents, and like many other parents of players around the league, or guardians or loved ones, whoever supported them to get to this point, they're all so proud, and it makes us as players go out there and just want to do more, give back to them, because we know it's never enough of what they've given us. And so, Mom and Dad, I appreciate you guys. You guys are watching, listening. You guys have always been a foundation, a rock to me, and I look forward to playing harder every year wherever my career goes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've had a heck of a career. David, I'll let you get to the LSU question next, because we have some tough LSU questions. People forget national championship.
Okay.
Put some respect on his name.
Okay.
But just in general, you come from a pretty incredible football family. You had 3 brothers that all went Division I before you did, right? Your dad was the face of the University of Hawaii football team, just, iconic over there. But like, what kind of did you feel pressure growing up? Obviously, you grew up in an environment where everyone cared for you, and that's such an important part in kind of cultivating what you want to do. But like, how much pressure was there, to play football, to be able to be good at football, to try to pay back your parents for kind of putting their return in you?
Wow, that's a great question. There was an immense level amount of pressure. I can vividly remember just growing up. My oldest brother leaving the house for San Diego State, then my brother Sam leaving for Texas Tech, and then my brother that's 5 years older than me, VJ, he left to Utah, and then it was just me, my mom, and dad in the house for like 5-6 years.
Dang.
And I kind of didn't know like what I wanted to do. Like football was always around, right? I always played it. I was always good at it as a kid. I excelled, but there wasn't really like a motivation inside of me that was like, man, like, I don't know if I can really fill these shoes my brothers had left before me, because they're really big shoes. Like 3 older brothers went to D1, and you're the youngest. We all went to the same high school. They all were all-state players, all decade players at the state of Hawaii. And, for me, it was like, how am I going to do this? And so I kind of had to find my way. I was just like this tweener 8th grader, like chubby kid. I was into gaming.
Sure.
I had these tech decks. I didn't remember those little skateboard,
decks.
The tech decks. And so like, I was like this nerd, like chubby kid, always in like 8th grade. Like, my dad would be working, my mom would be working. And I was like, I came home one day and I was just like, man, like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do in my life. And so I remember that my dad always had weights in the back of the house, and I just started lifting, and I just kind of found myself by being by myself. And, being alone really taught me how to mature, how to be a man, even though I was in 8th grade. I was by myself, and, I always remember hearing from people like, oh, are you going to be as good as your brothers? Are you going to do this and this? Are you going to fill their shoes?
Sure.
And, 3 years later, I had, the Hawaii State sack record, 24.5 my junior year, and then 26 my senior year. So
nuts.
It turned out pretty well for me, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my brothers. So yeah, it was immense level of pressure, but I made it through.
Yeah, you definitely did. And one of the things that you got to do on that journey is you were on one of the best college football teams of all time, who won.
He probably thinks the best ever. I think if we were to ask him, he'd probably say the GOAT team of all time. I would think if we asked him.
I mean, it's kind of hard to argue, man. The team had so many NFL players like, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase.
Yeah, man.
If you could put any of your 2019 teammates on the Chargers, who would you pick?
Oh, so that's a trick. Okay, let me ask you this. If I put them on the team, does that replace the players we have on the team now?
No, in addition to.
Yeah, in addition. Yes.
Oh, okay. I'd go Jay Jets and Jamar. In addition with Keenan and Mike. So you're running true four wide sets every
entire
down.
Game.
And then you ultimately have Eck and Herb. So I mean, you could do condensed formations, you could do spread formations. I'd put I was going to say Devin White, but Devin left the year before. So I'd probably put Patrick Queen at will linebacker.
There you go.
Next to Drew. Because that Drew and Kanan are good. Yeah. But Pat is one of the fastest human beings I've been around. And then our DB, I will say the Chargers DB room or the corners, we have Michael Davis, JC, Asante Samuel. They're really elite. So I wouldn't touch the corners.
You're not messing around with that. No Christian Fulton.
No, K-Baby's good. But man, watching Mike Davis and Asante come alive, man, I'm really happy that, Mike got his opportunity and, his market just went up.
He was so good.
He was really good. Really good.
The market for Michael Davis just went way, way up. The Chargers should be very lucky that they have that dude under contract still. Probably should just get an extension right now and just get the bag right now. I think if you ask me, I think most Charger fans could sign on the dotted line there. And I think the only name Chargers fans didn't want to hear you say there was Joe Burrow. So we're good there, but well, we are going to get back to Breiden Fehoko and figure out what it's like playing for Brandon Staley and why his players love him, and also him kind of breaking things down for us on the Chargers defense. But I do need to tell you guys that today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You guys heard me talk about this mobile gaming app, and I can tell you how much fun I had competing with the other Locked On hosts this season, even though I didn't win. Shout out to Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, but this is a game you guys are going to want to have with your friends because now it's your turn to compete, but more on that later. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM or you just wanted to take Tom Telesco's job, well, your dream can come true on this game is definitely for you because you'll get to manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, and lead your team to glory while building a dynasty. With Ultimate Football GM, you get to hire the right coaches and coordinators, trade players, navigate the ups and downs of all of the season because we know the NFL is crazy. And then guess what? You're an expert at that already because you're a Chargers fan. So you know all the roller coaster rides that come along with it. But our listeners right now, guys, you guys can get a 100% free boost to your franchise when you use the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure you guys check it out today because it really is a challenging and realistic game world ever at Ultimate Football GM. There's no game quite like it. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. I do want to talk about your coach, though, because he is one of the most polarizing people, right? You're looking at the media. Everyone wants him fired. Fans want him fired. It's half and half. Everything's, so half and half. But, when you talk to his current players, when you talk to his former players, there's a consistency to how much players kind of rave about playing for him, and just what it's like to play for him. So where do you think that disconnect is? Or what do you think that we can't see from the outside looking in that you guys kind of feel about Staley?
Here's the whole thing, right, is everybody wants to compare the new age acquisitions, I should say, in football to success that's happened in the past, right? So when they see, Brandon Staley, they see a new young coach, and then they start comparing it to, well, so-and-so's got a new young coach. Why don't we have this instant success? Philadelphia has Shane Steichen, who's a young OC. They have Nick Sirianni, who's a young head coach. Why don't we have this young success? Well,
right.
Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl in Philly before Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen came. So the foundation of that team was already built.
Sure. Yeah.
They came, not saying they aren't good coaches, but they came into a really good situation in Philly. Kansas City, the foundation was already set since 2011 when Alex Smith was playing quarterback for them, and so what people see now and what they see on the national stages of any sport, football, basketball, baseball, these foundations of the organizations have been set and they've had to go through some trying times, right?
Yeah.
So when I see people talk about, well, Brandon Staley, why isn't it working? He's this young coach, we need a more experienced coach. Well, we go 9-8 our first year. We go 10-7 our second year with a playoff appearance. Yes, ideally, it does suck that we blew a 27-0 lead. Let's address the elephant in the room. That sucks.
Yeah,
everybody knows it. I know it. The coaches know it. Everybody in the building knows it.
Is it worse than on anyone else than the players who are doing it?
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think so.
It's a sick feeling. You don't game plan. You don't plan for that. It's the nature of the game, and that's just sometimes the way the ball rolls. But you see the different glimpses of, wow, this team can be really good. Now, you take the exterior factors of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have only played, 4 full games this season. We've had O-line shuffles throughout the year. We've had 3-4 D linemen, with season-ending injuries. You have, J.C. Jackson goes out, and I'm not
with the injury.
Justin Herbert with I said on Twitter with smoke ribs and a torn labrum. I'm not the type of guy that likes to make excuses for circumstances,
Sure.
but when you look at the obstacles just alone in my 3 years we've had to face here, with the Chargers, and how we've rise through it from my rookie year going, what did we go, like 4-12 or 4 and,
Yeah. I think it's 5 wins that year.
5 wins
Yeah.
to a 9-8 win season and then a 10-7 win season. There's growth. Yeah, you'd ideally like to hit the lottery and hit the jackpot and go Super Bowl or bust, but it doesn't work like that. I'd like to say that for the people who invest in stocks, unless you're one that hits on Bitcoin that rises like 200% growth the next day,
Right.
you're going to pull. But most of the time you're going to hold because you need that small growth over time. And I like to compare that to football. And, I know to the fans that are, or to the people, to the media that want to say, we need to get them out of there. The system is set in place. Whether I'm playing here next year, whether there's 53 new guys playing for the Chargers under Brandon Staley, he has the right system in play for that team and for this organization. And it's going to be good. You just have to give it time.
And I think you saw that. I mean, towards the back end stretch of the season, the Chargers were one of the best defenses in the NFL. And we know there's going to be some personnel change, but is there anything from that stretch that you can kind of carry over into the 2023 season?
Yeah, we everybody who was on the field from that back end of the season to that playoff push, everybody had a buy-in mentality. Everybody had the mentality where, hey, this scheme actually works.
You're seeing the wins. You're seeing the results.
We're seeing the wins. We're seeing us play the Titans, and Derrick Henry he had a draw run for 15 yards. Mike, that was his longest run of the game, but still, you're seeing us hold a elite run team to 100 and whatever yards they had, and then go on a run where we play the Colts, who have arguably the highest paid offensive line and good offensive line set in the NFL. And so you see what the DBs did against Miami. The process works. The system is set in place. I think, like I said in the previous question, I think fans just want to see that instant success.
Of course.
And in the NFL, it doesn't happen like that. Yeah, you'd like to bank on a first-round pick being the next Walter Payton, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're better off trying to go get a lottery ticket than banking on, having a first-round pick that turned into a Barry Sanders his first year in the NFL.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the other thing is too is then you have the Brock Purdy's. Austin Eckler's an undrafted free agent. You're an undrafted free agent, and I think the hard thing about that specifically for you guys is where you get drafted and things like that can carry on with you as well into the next contract negotiations and things like that, and what people expected for you before you ever even put the helmet on. Yeah. But there's a lot of things that kind of get thrown around that maybe not everyone has a full understanding of, and I think one of those things is run fits. Right, that's one thing Brandon Staley talked about a lot. You're one of the guys up there trying to, stop the run. And we'll talk about, that Colts game and you doing a little something to that offensive high price line, right? You had a pretty good moment in that game. But run fits gets thrown around a lot. And I don't know if everyone has a full kind of comprehension of what that means. So what does it mean to fit a run, right? And why is that important in your defense?
Yeah, so this is funny because when I first got to the NFL, I had this college mentality. I'm glad you guys are asking this question. I always said, it starts and it ends up front with the D-line, which is true. And I've always said the D-line shuts down the run game. False. In the NFL, there's so much contributing factors of jet motions, tight end resets where they go from 11, make 12, 12, make 21. And you never really get a grasp on, okay, maybe this run's coming. Ideally, 70% they like to run to the tight end. Yeah, all that kind of stuff goes to your mind. But the NFL really makes all 11 players fit the run. In college, it's so buttered down to where, they're going 2x2, RPO. So all you really have to focus on is an inside zone play. You play San Francisco, you're going to prepare for 32 runs in a game. And it's jet sweep, crack toss strong, toss weak, lead strong, inside zone, counter GT. I mean, I can go on and on.
You played like that whole game, too. I think that was one of your higher snap games. That must have been nuts.
It was crazy, that game. And I can name all the runs, but going back to run fits in the NFL, offensive coordinators are so smart nowadays where they've really forced all 11 guys to get on a block, get off a block, and how long can you do it for until you're willing to give up? And if you watch the Tennessee Titans play, the Cleveland Browns play, and I want to even Philadelphia a little bit this year. They ran a little bit more RPO than I expected, but just the vanilla of their run game. Those three teams, if you watch them run the ball, they run the same thing and they do it every play. And you can even throw the Patriots and the Raiders in there, the whole, the Bill Belichick, the McDaniel scheme where you know what's coming every play. Are you going to do your job, not just the D-line? Are the linebackers going to be good with their eyes? Are the corners, who are huge in the run fit? Everybody talks about where's the edges of the defense. Well, the Chargers have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Why are the runs hitting to the edge? Well, what they're not realizing is now when you motion in that Z receiver and he cracks down on the edge, now your new edge guy becomes Asante Samuel. Now your new edge guy becomes Michael Davis. And this happens all around.
4th and 1 against the Jaguars.
4th and 1 against the Jaguars. They cracked down on Alohi Gilman, who was the edge player. We all crashed in. And then now it becomes a one-on-one with the running back.
He got tackled.
He got held.
He got tackled, bro.
That's the game. And so...
But they put him in that spot, right? They said, hey, we're going to push exactly where we think you have, a soft spot, and we're going to attack it.
What people fail to realize nowadays is this is not the days of the old school, hey, we're going to run the ball straight up the A gap. This is not that. Offensive coordinators got to know where, hey, this is where our matchup is. And most of the time, we're not going to run the ball to where 320-pounders are waiting for our running back.
What a thought.
We're going to run the ball to where, hey, let's get Derrick Henry on a corner. Oh, let's get Nick Chubb on this weak side linebacker here, one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so, people fail to realize it, but I want to be able to bridge that gap to where run fits is a whole defensive schematics. You have to fit 11 guys, and 11 guys have to be tapped in. And I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think a lot of people realize that, there's intricate details that going on into run fits. We spend an hour in walkthrough going to fitting through inside zones, but not just through our base scheme. It's through our nickel schemes. It's through our dime schemes, because you have to see it in different schemes. Guys have to be in different positions to fit. Say, if Derwin's playing big nickel and he's now inside next to Drew, Derwin's got to know that, hey, if this guy rock motions out, now I have the weak side B gap. So things of this nature, man, I'm always glad to talk about it and inform people that, want to hear about it.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get you back on and talk more about like that stuff specifically, because I think there's so much there, because I do think there is kind of a thought process from the fans, kind of like you coming out of college, right? Where it's like people see a Chargers, oh, their run defense is bad, their defensive tackles must suck, right? Like, but it's like, really, when you look at the Chargers, where they were the weakest, not calling anyone out, was on the perimeter. That's where most of the big runs came from, right? Because it's like that's where teams are targeting. But I do think that is something that people are still trying to catch up to, right? Where it's like a bad run defense doesn't necessarily mean bad defensive tackles. You can do everything right, and it can still go wrong defensively.
No, I totally agree. And like you said, like, man, I used to be just like that my rookie year. Like, I'd always be like, man, we should be able to stop this team with just the D-line. But nah, Breiden, it doesn't work like that in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan has made a living off of just scheming up runs in this day and age of football. And then you start implementing the play action on it. I'm like, yo, I'm good. Just leave me in on 1st and 2nd down. 3rd down, let the big dogs rush.
Well, I'm definitely learning something on today's show. And we're going to get back to Breiden Fehoko, including what player he was kind of starstruck by when he got to go up against him for the first time, and if there's any better feeling as a defensive tackle to get a big stop on 4th and 1 like he did this year against the Colts. But I do need to tell you guys that the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Chargers podcast and the NFL is FanDuel, my favorite sportsbook, obviously, but football season's over, and that sucks. But the great news is the NBA season is only midway through, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if you don't win. That means even if you lose, you can win money. All you have to do is just download the sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, it's super easy to use, and you can bet on anything from the point scorers to money line to how many threes a player is draining, and that's a great one. I mean, I'm always looking at player props and things like that, especially home and road is very, very important in the NBA. There's some really, really terrible road teams in the NBA. Make sure you're always checking that first. But player props, player points, rebounds, assists, you can do spreads, money line totals, so many exclusive bets that you can only find on FanDuel as well, which is also a place where you can find the same game parlay, where you can bet on multiple props in the same game and multiply your winnings. Plus, FanDuel is the best place to always place your bets. So don't miss the chance with your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Well, one of those opportunities where, the big guys such as yourself get an opportunity to shine is on those 4th and 1 situations. Is there any better feeling as a nose tackle than getting that 4th and 1 stop in a big moment?
Yeah. So, before it was the end of the quarter. So it was the end of the third quarter. It was going to the fourth quarter. And I knew they were going for it. So I told Tyler
against the Colts.
Yeah, against the Colts. So I told Tyler Davidson, because I'm usually on the left side of the center in those sneak formations. But I told Tyler Davidson, I said, let me go on the right on Quentin and Ryan's side. I said, I know they're going to sneak it behind Quentin. So let me get on that side. And so, tricks
of the trade. Take on the first round pick. Let me take on the All-Pro.
Tricks of the trade. I don't really like to talk about this because these are things I see. But during the game, as I started to get a feel for it, whenever Ryan Kelly would snap the ball, he would hold it like this. And whenever he'd snap it, his index would turn like this. So he'd always go like this, and then he'd always
tipping his pitches.
So I said, okay. I said, all right, I kind of got a feel for it. So in the first half, if you see me playing, I'm kind of like feeling Ryan now. I'm kind of feeling the game, feeling the blocks. Okay, this is what I'm getting. Then in the second half, where they try to run stretch, shut it down, went for nothing. And then on that 4th and 1 play, I said, okay, let me check. Let me see if. So we all got down. It wasn't no hard count. I saw Nick Foles get on the line. And before Nick Foles even said, Blue 80, said Hut. Before he said Hut, Ryan twisted his hand. And I saw the index go. And I just shot like straight off into Quentin and Ryan. And I said, yo, this guy's got to go nowhere. And then Morgan jumps in. Alohi jumps over the pile. And it's fun. I'm glad I didn't have to face Philly in the way they were sneaking the ball in the playoffs. But, you got to prepare for that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think it was you that said, like people don't really understand like how hard of a play that is to stop. Like quarterback sneaky. I think you said it's like the hardest play to stop, right?
It's not only the hardest, but they sneaked it in the Super Bowl from the 2-yard line.
I know, disrespectful.
That's insane.
I tweeted, I said, I don't know. I don't think people know how disrespectful. Like you get to the 1, okay, it's sneak. And some people won't even sneak from the 1-yard line. They go like inside the 1 to sneak. But they were 2 full yards away and still snuck the ball. And I was like, yo, mad respects, man. I got a lot of respect for Jason Kelce and how he's played the game.
Oh, man, for sure. I'm sure you – let's end on that. I mean, have you had any kind of moments like that in the NFL where, like, you can't – it's hard to fully appreciate, like, who you're going against? Like welcome to the NFL moment where you're like, oh, my God, like, I'm going up against Quentin Nelson. Oh, my God, I just stuffed Quentin Nelson, on a 4th and 1 play. Like, how cool are those moments where you're going up against guys you've seen play and kind of in that moment you're feeling like, wow, like I'm here, I'm with them, I belong.
Dude, I against Tennessee, I think arguably was probably my best game of the year. But like going up against Ben Jones, like especially playing at LSU, like I grew up watching Ben Jones at Georgia. Ben Jones was like when people talked about him in college, it was like, hey, this was like country fed, country strong, like, hey, Ben Jones.
There's
Ben
levels
Jones.
to this, yeah.
And throughout the week, Coach Staley would always come to me before practice. He'd be like, SEC matchup, we're gonna see what you're made out of against this Ben Jones guy. He's like, I know what Ben Jones can do. What is Brady gonna do this week? And it pissed me off every day. I'd go hit the sled, and Jay Rogers is like, yeah, Ben Jones is just breathing down your throat right now, Bray. He's breathing down your, and everybody was just, and so like we got to the game time, and I was just so sick of hearing Ben Jones. But after the game, I went up to Ben and I was like, yo, Ben, man, like I don't want to sound crazy right now, but man, I really like I grew up watching you play in the SEC. Like I grew up watching you at Georgia, like, your battles against those boys at Bama, those boys at LSU, Brockers, all those guys. Like, man, I really like appreciated, playing against you today. And the first words that came out of his mouth is like, man, I'm getting too old for you young guys.
Yes.
Ben goes, I don't know what they're feeding you young guys, man, but I'm getting too old for you guys. And he was like, we hugged, dapped it up. He's like, it was a pleasure going against you. And I told him, I was like, thanks for getting me better, man. Appreciate it. And that was kind of like a cool moment for me.
Respect.
Cool moment.
Dude. So especially someone you watch, you know what I mean, go up against some of the guys that you came behind at LSU, like Brockers and, some of those gnarly teams. But hey, man, I definitely want to get you back for some kind of, that boardroom. I know you think Kevin Durant's better than LeBron. I know he's doing the boardroom thing. So maybe we need a Breiden Fehoko boardroom, where we could break some more of those things down, because that was truly insightful, man. And we really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing some of that with us. And so glad that your audio came out great, too. It's something, you can smack talk Chris Rumpf about. But really appreciate you having you on, man. We'll definitely try to do it again.
No doubt, bro. I'm focused on spring training now. So, I'm going to lock into the pods, man. See what Xander Bogaerts is going to give the pods this year.
With his LA Dodgers hat on, he says
with
his
LA
Dodgers hat on.
Yeah. But no, man, I'm excited. Baseball's around the corner for everybody. So I want to actually go check out spring training in Arizona if there's time. So.
Well, okay, what's the off-season program like for you, though? It seems like everyone's very interested in that. So when you're not going to baseball games, what's it look like for you? How much does that suck, having to wake up 5 a.m. in the off-season? Is there an off-season for the NFL? Let's just get that last thing. Is there an off-season truly? Because I don't think there is.
No, because football's a sport where you have to stay in shape year-round. So they say off-season, but it's in-season workouts without playing football.
Right.
So, I wake up, cook me some breakfast, or my fiance makes breakfast, and then I'm outside warming up. I program my whole off season. So whether I'm doing upper body, lower body, core work, conditioning work, it's on a certain day. And then, I work out for about 2.5 hours, 2 hours in the morning, come in, shower up, get some lunch. I go back. Everything is in my house. I built, a weight room, full weight room in my house, just so I don't have to go anywhere.
Sure.
I'll go hit the sauna, and then in the afternoon, I'll come back. I'll do some football related stuff. I'll do some footwork. I have a sled. I'll hit the sled. I'll hop on the Peloton if I'm feeling like, my body's a little sore, but I still need to get some cardio in. So I'll do the Peloton. But it's cool. I total 3.5, 4 hours a day of work, 4 days a week. For the fifth day, I usually do like a yoga or, some active where, I'm still kind of getting the heart rate up, but, not really physically demanding. And then
Sure.
Saturday and Sunday I take off. But yeah, that's what I do, man. That's the off season. It's just lifting and running without football.
Ugh, and that's always the worst part, right? You practice for Sundays because Sunday's the fun part. No player hates to play on Sundays, right?
No,
Anyone can hate practicing.
Everybody hates practicing.
I remember growing up, and then the other thing too is players that criticize film. We talked about this with Chris Rumpf. It's these players have to sit in front of their coach the next day and have him point out everything he does wrong. And sometimes when it's coming to, man, and you're like, oh no, we're 2 plays away from me missing this tackle.
It's coming.
And this guy's gonna rip me, and you just have to sit there and take it, man. But hey, man, super appreciative to you again. Can't wait. If you're not on the Chargers somehow, exclusive rights free agent. If somehow you're not on the Chargers, they're making a big mistake, man. We're super excited for you to make the team. Think you should have played, pretty much every game. You deserve to make the cut last year and be a part of this defense. So appreciate that, man. Keep up the grind, bro.
Appreciate you guys
so much.
Thank you guys for having me on here. It was a blast. For sure, looking forward to doing it again.
Well, a very, very special thank you to Breiden Fehoko for coming on the show. He really opened up, and he didn't need to do that. He could have gave very, common answers, and he really was invested in, and I think he taught us a lot, and he was a lot of fun. We'll definitely try to get him and other Chargers players on the show. But to make sure you guys don't miss shows like this, make sure you're subscribing to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, also following the show for free on all platforms, wherever you get your podcast from. You don't want to miss tomorrow's show because we're talking about new quarterbacks coach Doug Nussmeier, somebody we had linked to the Chargers as their quarterback coach spot opened up under Kellen Moore. So we'll talk about that. But you can also find the show every day on all of our social media. So make sure you go follow me on Twitter at DanTalkSports and David Drogemeyer on Twitter at DroTalkSD. We post the show there every day, or our show's Twitter at Locked On LAC. You can also find the show on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page and at Locked On Chargers on Instagram. Thank you guys again. If you want to get in on Fan Mail Friday this week, you can call into 323-524-7924. Leave a 30-second voicemail about your off-season question, and we will get into it, or you can hit us up on Twitter or even in the YouTube comments. But let us know what you thought about today's interview. We appreciate you guys checking out today's show. We'll be back talking tomorrow about the Chargers' new quarterback coach. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.